I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javit.
All right. Thank you so much for listening today, wherever you might be in the world. This is Matt Javit alongside Nikki Javit, and we are a couple that's been traveling full-time for over 16 months now. We're documenting our journey on this podcast as well as our website, passportjoy.com, in the hopes of helping other travelers have an easier stay during their weekends or their week-long getaways, or even if they're trying to plan long-term travel like we've done. We're currently sitting in a very tiny apartment in Krakow, Poland. And it's been an educational and fun week here, learning about the history of Poland and everything that's gone on in this small town that we are in. And we are going to take you to the Greek islands in this podcast. We've spent over 7 weeks on Greek islands, 5 different islands. And man, we loved it. We love the beaches, the cold Mythos beer. There's so much to love. And we're going to get into that during this podcast. And we also do a quick book review of a couple of books that have changed us recently. We're going to highlight those for you. As always, please check out the Journey So Far tab if you're just getting caught up on this podcast. If you're new to it, the Journey So Far tab at passportjoy.com shows you all the places we've been over the past 16 plus months, from the times that the couple of months we spent in India, a month in Vietnam, South Africa. It goes through everything that we've been through and has quick links that'll take you to the different stories or episodes that we've talked through those. If in case you go away before we recap in the end, please remember to sign up for our newsletter on the website, passportjoy.com. We send out weekly highlights on Thursdays from everything that we've kind of went through during the week, and then stuff that's coming up for us in the coming weeks. Like this week, we're going to Switzerland for 3 weeks, and then we end our European trip in Estonia before we go over to Japan. So during those weekly emails, you get different highlights on the things that we're going through as we prepare or things that we've lived through. All right, let's get into the episode. Opa! All right, we're talking Greek islands. We've been lucky enough to visit 5 Greek islands. There are over 1,000 Greek islands, with about 200, a little bit over 200 being inhabited, depending upon what list you look at. But regardless to say, there's a ton of Greek islands you can go to. We've been to Mykonos, Santorini, Paros, Corfu, and Aegina. So we're going to talk about each of these and how they're a little bit different. But in general, there's some generalities when it comes to the Greek islands. Of course, they're amazing. You've probably seen all the photos and just how gorgeous they are. So be sure to bring a camera that has plenty of storage, because you're going to be taking a lot of photos to share on social media and with your family and friends back home. If you're okay and you're comfortable with it, grab an ATV or a scooter that are typically offered on all the islands to get around and see the different parts, because there's so much to explore on these islands. You get a little bit off the beaten path and see a lot of the spectacular views from up top. And also there's typically a lot of churches and just gorgeous angles throughout the hillside. So you definitely want to, if you're comfortable getting on a scooter or an ATV, it's definitely worth it. And you want to get one, if possible, at 125cc or more, because if you're 2 people, you definitely need to get 125cc. But the terrain can be rough, with dirt roads or rocky terrain, steep incline hills and whatnot. So if you don't have enough power, you might get stuck. But I'll tell you this though, use caution. And when you're on the bikes, be smart. Even if you've rode your bikes back home, we've had the chance to see a couple of people that wrecked their bikes, and it's not a fun situation on a deserted in some of these places that you can wreck your bike. So just be careful and be smart when you're on the motorcycles or the scooters. Wear a helmet at all times. Yeah, very smart. Yeah, and they have to give you one. So demand a helmet. If they don't want to give you one, demand the helmet. So Next item that's typical in all is the amazing Greek food. Hopefully, wherever you are in the world, you're already eating Greek food. But when you come there, it is just at a different level with the fresh Greek salads. Nikki and I love our Greek salads with tomatoes, green peppers, red onions, olives, and the feta cheese. And then I'm going to struggle saying this, spanakopita. Spanakopita is with the fresh spinach and the onions and the feta. That's a heavenly treat for me. And there's always great. Okay, Nikki's saying that it's made in a phyllo pastry. So it's super soft and it kind of like crumbles, flaky, and it like crumbles in your hand. I love it so much. And then the fish is amazing. The seafood is delicious on these Greek islands because they catch it fresh every day and they bring it in and they grill it either in front of you, the octopus in front of you, or whatever you want to have. It's right there, fresh from the water. And the beaches. So the beaches on all these different islands, they're unique in their own way, but they all have typically gorgeous and a lot of fun. And there's party beaches, family beaches, nude beaches, and remote beaches. Depending upon what you want to find, you can definitely find it to sunbathe, party, or just swim and hang out, or just float. There's a particular beach we went to in that we're going to get into towards the end in near Paducah, that it is just the salt water is so dense that you can just float all day long if you want to. So those are things that you really want to think about. And then as far as like money and stuff goes, the ATMs, you got to be careful because there's not always ATMs readily available on all the islands. And sometimes the pharmacies. So you just kind of want to be prepared. It's kind of island life, right? So you got to be overly prepared that you might not have everything available. Some of the islands are bigger. Some of the cities are bigger on the islands, but you just want to be overly prepared to be able to take in the event and not have to worry about stuff like, where do I get money, or you have to get your medication for pharmacy and whatnot. So just be overly prepared. And then as far as having a good time, the Mythos beer and ouzo, be prepared to consume a lot. They pour it often, and I am definitely someone that loves the Mythos beer when we're there. And the ouzo, I never turn down an ouzo shot, so I've had my good share of those. So with that being said, we're going to jump into the differences of each of the islands, and we're going to start off with Mykonos.
Okay, so the Cyclades Islands they contain Mykonos, Santorini, and Paros. And Mykonos is more of like what you would consider the party island. It's known basically for its nightlife scene, its seen and be seen beaches, and all the pictures that you see online or travel blogs or on Instagram. Just think like the whitewashed houses, the pink flowered balconies, the bright blue doors. And if you've ever seen those pictures where travelers are in Greece and they're standing in front of those Greek windmills, that's in Mykonos. So in Mykonos, some things that I would suggest for you to do is obviously get a picture in front of those ancient windmills. And those windmills actually date back to the late 16th century, and they can be found right along near the coast. So it's a great photo opportunity for Instagram. Again, like I said, it's known for its nightlife. So you can day drink all you want. There's tons of party beaches. There's a beach called Paradise Beach and its brother beach called Super Paradise Beach, where they have DJs and dancing all day and into the night. There's also a lot of clubs as well. People party all day and all night long. So you can basically find a party any time of the day. Snoop Dogg DJ'd there. We saw Snoop Dogg there. It's pretty awesome. I mean, the club scene is really awesome. I mean, you'll see anything from people completely dressed to the nines to wearing a bikini in a club, and everything's completely socially acceptable. So it's really fun. Mykonos, unlike the other islands, has a lot of fantabulous shopping. So the island itself, there's no cars allowed. So everything that you do and see is done by foot, but there's just like endless narrow streets with stores and boutiques and art galleries and fine jewelry or handmade jewelry by the artisans that live there. And it's just tons of shopping that you can partake in. And the shops actually stay open fairly late at night. So I remember when we were there, I was like looking at jewelry and it was like past midnight, after we had a really great dinner that night. So there's some really great shopping there. And then Santorini. So differing from Mykonos, prior to going to Santorini, what I had envisioned in my head was kind of, it would be similar to Mykonos. And it does look the same, where it does have the whitewashed buildings and then the blue rooftops that you would see in the travel pictures. But it's more what I would describe as like the romantic and luxurious hillside rooftop pools overlooking the sea. It's more of a place where people go on their honeymoon. It just has a more romantic feel to it. It's not as a party atmosphere. Now, of course, with that being said, you can find places to go to. There is a nightlife scene, but it's not as lively as it is in Mykonos. What Santorini is definitely known for is its beaches. They have a beach called Red Beach and a beach called Black Beach. And the reason those beaches are called that is because the sand at Red Beach is like a burnt orange, almost burnt red color. And then Black Beach, the sand is actually like a black colored sand. So the beaches there are just absolutely amazing. It's kind of a trek to get to some of them. There are certain like ferry companies or boating companies where you can go from the main area and they will take you to those, like in a little like boat to the beaches, so it's easier. Or we went and it wasn't very hard, but we kind of traveled along the coast by foot and had to do a little bit of climbing, but it wasn't like anything by any stretch of the imagination difficult, but it was pretty amazing. A lot of their beaches do have the sand, like I said, but some of them are fairly rocky. So you might want to just keep that in mind when you're going to bring a pair of like water socks or something like that. But again, Santorini, hands down, some of the best beaches I've seen and most unique too, just because of the different colors of sand. And then moving along to Paros. Now, Paros, unlike Mykonos and Santorini, is far smaller. So it does not have an airport and it's a little bit harder to get to, but it's completely worth it. So it's built around 2 bays, but the interior village is super cute and small, but very charming. And you can get to Paros via a ferry. I think there's 2 daily ferries that go there. So it's easy. You can look it up online, buy your tickets online, etc. We've actually been there 2 times. It's awesome. But yeah, I don't know. There's not enough great things I can say about it. It's more of like a chilled, laid back vibe. When we were here, we actually took a private sailing cruise that was like a day tour sort of thing. And I don't remember how many people were actually on our sailing cruise. Maybe 8 people. Okay.
6 of us and we added 2.
Okay. There were 6 of us like in our group. And then there was a couple that had missed their tour and they were very distraught. And we were just like, hey, come along with us. We don't really care. So they're from Australia and we just made a couple new friends, but it was really cool. So what we did is you could go out sailing during the day, lay out on the boat if you would like to. And then there were some caves along the coastline that you could go to and swim along, or there was a little tiny church like out in the middle of the ocean that you could, like the boat would anchor and then you could swim out to this little church that was out in the middle of the ocean. There was cliff jumping and cliff diving if you wanted to do that as well, some snorkeling, and they had, some light snacks and stuff on the boat and some cocktails if you wanted to. So that was a really fun experience.
Yeah, I highly recommend the get a yacht for a half-day adventure if you have the numbers. Sometimes if it's only a couple, Nikki and I have had a chance to do that as well, then you can kind of team up with other people that have a yacht or a boat house, if you will, because it gives you a chance just to kind of get out of the regular island time and get out into the water. And then the folks that have the yachts know all the cool spots to go, and they can take you either to go cliff diving or just go to jump in the water and snorkel around or whatnot. And then typically, because you have a driver, you can bring a few cocktails on board and have like a light lunch or something as well. So it's just a nice way to get out on the water and enjoy yourself and do something different, catch some rays and have a good time. So we try to mix in some half-day type trips when we can, if it makes sense and the price isn't too crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely worth every penny, and I highly suggest it if you can fit that into your travel budget. So moving along to a different group of islands is Corfu, and it's in what is called the Ionian Islands. Now, how we got to Corfu was actually on a different trip. So the 3 islands that I had just mentioned before were in one Greece trip. And this one is we were in Albania with my sister, my brother-in-law, and my niece. And then we decided to take a day trip. So what we did is we took a hydrofoil sort of ferry, fast ferry from Albania to Corfu. And it was really fast, really easy to do. And once we got there, I mean, it's just completely different from Mykonos, from Santorini, from Paros. So the buildings themselves almost look sort of similar to buildings that you would see in Italy. And it's just a smattering of palaces and castles throughout the island. And again, like narrow alleyways and cobbled streets. But on this island, you can drive vehicles. So if you do plan on renting a car on this island, which we did because we did have my niece, and at the time she was 1 year old, I do want to just forewarn you that it is very difficult to find parking, although it is doable. And there are a lot of people that are driving around. But again, intermixed amongst all of this stuff is boutique stores, tons of great restaurants, and a lot of Orthodox and Catholic churches. So what we did while we were in Corfu, just because we were only there for like a short little day trip, and we also did have my niece, is we did enjoy like a bunch of great Greek food. And then we did take some time to just climb around some of the fortresses and castles while we were there, because it was just easy to do when we had a child in a stroller. But we did go in and out of some of the boutique shops. And then we had a reservation. My brother-in-law went ahead and made a reservation at this amazing restaurant for us to see the sunset. But a funny story about that is that since we had a car, we were driving there, and we've actually told this story before, but we used Google Maps to get there. And just a word to the wise, don't always trust Google Maps, because we ended up taking a road that Google Maps told us to take. And it was like the tiniest, narrow, like made of gravel in the middle of a forest, in the middle of nowhere. It should not have been marked as a road. And we ended up having to, my sister and I, get out of the back of the car because the weight of our bodies being in the vehicle, weighted the car down so much that the bottom of our car was actually scraping on the gravel on the ground. And we felt that, like, with my brother-in-law driving and my 1 year old niece in the car, all we needed to do was just find a way to get off this cliff and hope that the car didn't fall over. So in the end, we made it to our sunset reservation, but it was really like one of those things looking back where it's hilarious now, but while it happened, it was crazy. So Corfu has some really wacky roads, and trying to navigate that with Google Maps is super hard. So, but Corfu in itself is awesome. I wish we could have stayed there longer. We were only there for a day, but it's definitely worth seeing. Another place that we went to, and we had the luxury of actually staying there for an entire month, was an island called Aegina, Greece, or Aegina Island. And it is actually considered a Saronic Gulf island, and it's super close to Athens. And so you can actually take a hydrofoil, one of the fast ferries, from the port of Paros. And I'm not sure how long it took, but it was probably like over an hour to get there. But again, if you have a day trip you want to do and you're staying in Athens, I highly suggest doing this. Or maybe if you don't have a lot of time to go island hopping around to the other further away islands, the ones that we had just mentioned, like Mykonos and Santorini, I highly suggest going to Aegina just to get the island feel, because it truly is a Greek island. And it has all of the things that we had just talked about, like the Greek food and all that kind of stuff. But we actually ended up staying in Perdica village, which was not the main town once you get there. So it's about 10 kilometers away from like the main town, but well worth it. And in full disclosure, we did a work away while we were there. So part of our day was consumed in volunteering, working for this bed and breakfast. And then, the time that we were not volunteering, we got to spend on this amazing island. And essentially, Perdica village is just a small little fishing village. And in a nutshell, I mean, it's completely different from all the other islands. So it has cobbled streets in its main town, But the rest of the island, it's the landscape of the island just changes as you travel from north to south and from east to west. So like on the north end of the island, it's more of like a foresty, like pine forests, while the southern half of the island is more lined with fishing villages. And then the eastern side of the island is more mountainous and rocky coastlines. And then the west side of the island is really unique in the fact that it is full of olive trees and pistachio groves. So again, like we said, when we suggested to, when you go to Greece to get an ATV or a scooter, this is definitely hands down an island where we did get a scooter and go around and explore, just because it was so great to see how the landscapes differed just from going just a short distance. And the island, although it was small, to navigate the island on foot is just, it's next to near impossible. Even walking from where we were staying in Perdica village to the main town, the 10 kilometers was, it took 2 hours to do that. Although it seems like it wouldn't, it did. But anyways, yeah, getting the scooter is such a great thing to do, so you can see how it varies. But other things that you can do while you're in Aegina Island or on Aegina Island is they have tons of temples, so Greek temples and Greek monasteries. And one of my favorite ones that we actually went to was called the Temple of Athena Aphia. And it's the temple that is dedicated to the goddess of Athena. And it's actually the single most important archaeological masterpiece of Greece. And you can actually see the Acropolis of Athens and the Temple of Poseidon on a clear day when you go to this temple. So it's super cool. And again, the island has tons of churches and cathedrals that you can visit. And like I said, monasteries as well. So yeah, it's just really awesome. And then while we were here, Matt actually did, and he posted, I think on Instagram or maybe a Facebook post, but he posted this amazing hike that he did. So there is this mountain called the Hellenian Mountain, and he hiked up to the top of it. And it's Aegina's highest peak, so it's about 500, a little over 530 meters. And once you get to the top of it, you can see just like a breathtaking view of the whole entire Saronic Gulf. And I don't know, I'll let Matt talk to you about how difficult it was, but when I saw his video, I just thought, wow, I wish I would have gone on it.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes. But it was one of those things where we were down in Perdica village, and as you look up, you see all these hilltops with different churches throughout the landscape. And I just looked up there, and I like to hike. So I'm just like, I'm going to go up there one or two times while we're here. And the first time I think I hiked up half of it maybe. And it's not as challenging as it is confusing, because the paths as you go up the mountain, they're not as clear as you'd hope with foot marking or I guess the width of the path. So I wasn't really sure the first time. And then I came back down. I ended up spending like 3 hours on that. And the next time I figured it out, I went a different path after I looked online for some different information. And I got to the very top of this, where this church is. And I think I ended up doing that twice. And on the way down, so that whole thing was about 5 hours total. And on the way down, it gets kind of scary too, because I remember there was a pack of dogs waiting for me at one area coming down the path. But they do I'll put a link in there. There's a pretty good website has attempted to map this out, and there's markings along the path that you can see as you do the coast. And then I also did another, Nikki's going to touch on Moni Island that's across the way. I also hiked up that as well. That was crazy difficult. I can remember that there really is no path. That's more of just making your way up these different rock formations, because there's an old fort at the top of it that I wanted to see. So I ended up doing that as well. And I believe that's also on the YouTube video that I'll share with you.
Yeah. So the other thing that I really enjoyed that we did, so during our stay on Perdica, in Perdica village, we had a couple friends visit us from the United States, and we tried to find like just some cool things that we could do. Not that we had already seen the island itself, but just a couple day trips, or maybe just unique things that we hadn't already done. And one of them was taking this day trip to Moni Island. And you can actually, from Perdica village, you could take a small little boat, and it just costs €5 for a round trip ticket per person. And it takes you out to this little island.
And Moni Island is uninhabited. No one lives on it. But the only thing really on this island is just coastline and just the most amazing beach. There's one restaurant that sells just your basic food and I think maybe some beers or whatever. But the thing to note about it that we didn't know beforehand is you can actually bring your own food, bring your own cocktails, your own beer or whatever. So you don't have to eat at the restaurant. And you could just lay out and just chill all day long on this really neat little beach on a really tiny little island. And unique to this island is these little wild deer. I don't even know how to describe them. They look like little baby Bambis. They're super cute. And goats and peacocks that walk around. So I don't know, just something unique, totally different that I've never seen ever anywhere before. And like I said, it's only €5 to get there and back. And yeah, it's weird because in Aegina, so on Aegina, in the sea itself, the Ionian Sea, we noticed when we were swimming that you could essentially just float. So I don't know, maybe we're making this up in our heads. I want to say that the concentration of salt is higher in the Ionian Sea than it is in the other surrounding Greek islands, but maybe I'm wrong. So I love it if someone actually knew the answer to that assumption. But I don't know. I just felt like every time I got in the ocean, I was floating. But I don't know. That was just
floating more than normal. Like you could, your entire body, you can just rest there effortlessly. Like if you've done any of those, Nikki and I have done this once, is the float, the float tanks is getting really big in America now, that you can basically just go in there into the tank and you just lay there and it keeps you up. It seemed that dense of salt that you can just relax in the water and not even think about it, and your whole entire body be above the water. So it was pretty unique in that way.
Yeah, it was really cool. But I highly suggest making a day trip to Moni Island if you have an extra day on Aegina Island. And then I guess the only other thing I kind of want to say about Aegina Island is that while we were there, and since we spent so much time there, we found out that, and I had mentioned before, is that part of the island is home to these pistachio trees or pistachio groves and olive trees. And so a big part of their business in town and just around in general is selling pistachio products and obviously selling olive products or whatever you want to say, olives in general. But they have an annual pistachio festival every year. We actually left right before it happened. When I say pistachio products, I never knew all the things that could possibly be made out of pistachios. So minus what you would normally think of pistachios themselves, like roasted pistachios, like nuts or whatever. And they actually sell the raw form of the pistachio right off the tree. They sell like creams, so like lotions, and they sell flavored ice cream. They sell nut butters. Any type of beauty product you can possibly imagine. And a lot of people make really good money doing this. And because it's such like a big thing on this island, you can just buy like a huge thing of pistachios for like under €2, or even like a small thing of pistachios for under €1. And we would do that, like you could be in a church parking lot and just find like a bag of pistachios, like a person just selling that on the side of the street. So just a fun little factoid that I never knew that this was like a major source of commerce for them.
Yeah, and then something I want to add is the idea of cooking on your vacation or your longer term stay. Obviously, if you have a weekend vacation or whatnot, you don't want to do that. But if you're going to places like Greece where you're taking 10 to 12 days, or if you're doing long-term traveling, trying to cook like a local, and I guess you have to be in a certain situation. So we were in a bed and breakfast where we had pots and pans and we had access to certain things. Airbnbs, you can do similar, right? You'll have what you need in the kitchen to do something. If you're staying in a hotel, not so easy. But in this particular case, we had seen mussels throughout the island. Now, obviously, Nikki's not going to eat mussels, but I like eating seafood when I can. And so I started looking up recipes for mussels online, and I found this drunken mussels where essentially you put beer in there with butter. I can't the whole recipe, but it was a bunch of vegetables, and you just cook up these mussels and to a point where they begin to open up, and you open up all the way and you eat the mussels inside. But we turned that into just a fun night on the rooftop that we were staying in Perdica with our friends that we had met from Germany that are still now very close friends of ours. And we just had a great time with it, cooking roasted tomato. And Nikki and her friend got all kinds of stuff for the grill: roasted tomato, zucchini, garlic and feta dishes, baked potatoes, fresh bread. And then I made the drunken mussels that took me probably an hour. So it was quite a deal. But just the idea of trying to cook like a local when you're there instead of going out to eat every night, it could be a different way because when you're in the other cultures, obviously you have people that are going to help you. Obviously, I got a lot of help with my mussels from our host that we were staying with. She gave me advice in the process of cooking mussels. I had never cooked mussels before in my life, but after that, I went down to the local fish market, bought the mussels from them, talked to them about the cooking temperatures, and then talked to my host about it. They gave me all the coaching I needed, and now I feel confident that I could do it again back home, because when you're in the atmosphere of the culture, you've got all these coaches that want to make sure that you can cook it the best way. So just some advice there.
Yeah, so that's all that we really have on Greece, the Greek islands, I should say, per se. And we hope you like it. And if you ever have a chance to go and visit them, they each have their own little unique charm about themselves, and they differ drastically, but they also have similarities between each other. So I don't know. I hope you like this, and we will talk to you soon. During our travels, we use the Skyscanner app. It's a comprehensive, fast way to compare millions of flights to find you the cheapest deal. They also find hotels or car hires. When you find your flights and click to book, Skyscanner will link you through directly to the airline or travel agent and never charge you a commission, and there are no hidden fees. We love the unique price alert email that will alert you if the price of your flight goes up or down. This service is totally free of charge, and you can change your alerts or unsubscribe at any time. Matt loves Skyscanner because you can search for flights by alternative airports and dates. The app allows you to be creative and save money. Check out passportjoy.com/scan. Again, passportjoy.com/scan to learn more about Skyscanner and why we love it. We are big fans of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is the world-renowned business and life coach. Prior to leaving for our extended travel journey, we attended the Tony Robbins event. It was called Unleash the Power Within. It happened in San Jose, California. It was a 3.5-day immersive event focused on breaking through your limitations so that you can have the most extraordinary life. And the event focused on personal growth and personal goals. And as most of you know, Matt attributes most of his success to Tony and thought leaders just like Tony. And I'll admit, and up until Matt had asked me to come along with him to the Unleash the Power Within event, I had zero interest in events like this. And I'm really glad I said yes and I attended the event. The event to me was so much more than the knowledge that I gained from it. It was the energy that was there. It was palpable. And while I was there, I just felt awakened and a sense of renewal that I had never felt before. I even made a really good friend that I still talk to this day. Everything from financial freedom to health and relationships was discussed. This event had a profound effect on how I view life. The events like this are not cheap, but honestly, I just look at it as an investment in yourself. Check out passportjoy.com/Tony. Again, passportjoy.com/Tony to check out more information about events like this. And to check out more tips and tools we use during our travels, check out passportjoy.com/tools.
All right, we get asked from time to time about the books we're reading or books that have influenced us and whatnot. So we're just going to do like a quick book review and just highlight a couple of books that have changed us in the recent 6 months or so. And then also I want to point you to our tab, our books tab at passportjoy.com. It highlights the books we love. And this is an ongoing list that we change. And then there's a PDF link that you can download as well. So you can refer to it later. We update that every 6 months or so. But that, again, it's a free PDF link that you can just click on, download, and you can get all these books. There's over 30 on that list that you can look at and kind of go through from time to time. The way that we typically consume on the road is through Kindle, our Kindle app. I actually have a Kindle. Nikki uses the app on her phone, and I'm big on Audible. If you've never used Audible, it's a way that you can listen to books through the headphones as we travel. The cool thing I like about Audible is I can comprehend well that way. That's why I love podcasts. I love audiobooks, but you can also change the speed. So if you feel like the speaker is speaking too slow, and I do this with podcasts as well, you can speed it up to do like 1.25 or 1.5. So the talking is faster, and then you could consume as much as, I guess, if that's the way that you can comprehend it quicker, then that's how I do my books. Another hack that we use is from your local library that we did our, before we left, we both got library cards in Indianapolis. You go to your local library, and then you can check books out from your local library. So wherever you are, and if you're hearing this from the States, make sure you get your library card because these are free books, free ways to consume. Books are vital to growth. And with that, you can get physical books, digital books, or audio books for free. Sometimes you have to get on waiting lists, but you can still get those sent directly to your mobile device. There's a great, the app that Nikki uses the most is called Libby by Overdrive. And it's a great way to read books on your mobile device for free. It connects to your library card, and you can even download those books to your Kindle. So once you get the books, you put it on your Kindle and you read it just like you would anything else, like as you would like an Amazon. And it's all free. So make sure you're taking advantage of those hacks if you haven't already. It's a great way to consume content online. Okay, so we're going to just highlight a couple of books each that have changed us in recent history. Mine pretty much had the same theme around productivity and limiting distractions. Now that we've been on the road for almost a year and a half now, the distractions have creeped back in a big way. And I'm trying to get more focused to spend time on some of the creative stuff that I want to do. So I'm trying to overcome this. And part of overcoming that is probably distracting myself more by reading books. But both of the books that I'm highlighting talk about this topic significantly because it's becoming a problem in this this era that we're living in with technology, where there's so many things coming at us. And the fact that I'm one of these people that I love to consume, but I'm at the current time, I have way too much input and not enough output. And output for me in my current state that we've left our careers, but for me, it's more working on creative projects, stuff like the podcast, blog posts, and other stuff that I'm working on. So trying to get better at doing that. So these books, my first book is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. This was excellent because it's one of those things where it builds in, I guess, like it creates a task-focused mindset of finding ways to build 60 to 90 minute chunks of your day to focus and turn everything off and just dig in. So if you're somebody that has a problem or is currently challenged with really getting deep, intensive work done, I highly recommend Deep Work because it re-inspired me to kind of take charge of my day and build in this organized time to find time to focus on concrete tasks in a period. And it talks about the idea that we can't all function at a high level for 8 to 10 hours a day, but we can function at high level for 60 to 90 minute portions. And it's important to find those 60 or 90 minute portions and make it an important part of your life and daily activities to do that. So Deep Work has helped me refocus on that and increase my productivity in that way. The other book is called Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. And this is kind of around the same vein, the idea that if you don't have systems in place and you're just depending on the fact that, oh, my willpower is going to kick in and I'm going to do this because I care or I'm stronger than my mind, you're fooling yourself. Because if you don't do things a certain way, if you don't systematically do things to take control of your day and do it in have like a focused effort to do it, then you're probably not going to make time to do these things. So those are my two books. Again, Deep Work by Cal Newport and Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. If you're having trouble taking control of your day, or if you find yourself getting off and you're unfocused, these are two books I highly recommend. They've helped me kind of get back in that model that I was really good at when I was in the corporate world of being very regimented. I mean, I grew up in a military family, so that kind of that idea of this is what my day looks like every day. But now that we travel all the time, I've got a built-in excuse why my day doesn't look the same every day. So I'm trying to take out that excuse and get back on task. And that's why I chose those two books.
So my two books that I'm choosing are just to highlight focusing on positivity in your life. And the first one I want to highlight is called Something Like Happy by Ava Woods. And I've actually gifted this book a couple times just because I really like this book so much. It's a super easy read. And it is basically about like 100 days and 100 new ways to be happy. And it's just all about living your life in the now and finding anything that can make you happy. So living your life to the fullest. And I mean, I guess it's just, have you ever asked yourself, like, what if I had only just 100 days to live? Like, what would you do with that time if you did just have 100 days to live? And even if you didn't have 100 days to live, what if in 100 days you had to do something every single day to make yourself happy, even if it was just the smallest of thing? So I don't know. For me, this book is just a really great reminder that happiness comes to us in really ordinary moments, and that sometimes we just risk missing out on life when we just get really busy chasing around the extraordinary. And I think it's a really good reminder of that. The next book for me that I wanted to highlight was What I Know for Sure by Oprah Winfrey. And this book is really just packed with insight and little tidbits and discoveries that Oprah herself has learned over the years and that she wants to share with her readers. In the book, she has tons of quotes and just revelations that are basically uplifting, to say the least. And it's sort of like a life guide book that I would, I guess, promote anyone to live by. It's just a book in general that helps with self-reflection. And I think it's a book that really helps with living the best version of ourselves.
Awesome. So like I said, we have a tab on passportjoy.com under books, passportjoy.com/books. But there's also a tab when you go there, you'll see it. And you can see all our 30 plus books online that we recommend. Or you can download the PDF that we've created to make it real easy for you to check it out there as well. So please do. And if we're always open to suggestions on new books, I get people all the time that send me over links and ideas, and I typically do read those. But like I said, I'm trying to have more output than input. So I've kind of slowed down on reading a little bit because I'm trying to produce more creative stuff. But as always, please send those over because we want to check those out. That is it. And that is it for this episode. Thank you so much again for listening. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. This really helps Nikki and I get in front of new travel listeners that might not be aware of our story. And also, thank you so much for leaving great reviews like this one left on Apple Podcast. Great enthusiasm and passion for what you guys are doing. Hopefully this inspires more people to do the same. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you so much for taking the time for those kind words. We really appreciate all the feedback that we're getting and for you taking the time to actually write that. As always, I list out all the important links that we talked about in this episode in the show notes. For instance, the YouTube video of the hike that I went on in Perdica, and also the yacht company that we used for the awesome day trip on the water in Paros. So you can go to our podcast tab at passportjoy.com and find the episode listing, and all the information is there just as it is for all the episodes. You can follow along with the travel updates in our weekly newsletter that comes out on Thursdays by signing up at passportjoy.com. And you can always find our latest blog posts, travel tips and tools, social media links at the website. And like we mentioned in this episode, the Books We Love tab where you can get the PDF downloaded as well. All right, we'll be back next week for a new episode. Until then, safe travels to wherever you might be heading next.